Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our October edition of Talking with Todd. It's good to see that we already have 212 people attending, and it's much appreciated. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules. And I'm going to begin today by just mentioning a few words about, in follow up to my message to the campus about the events in Israel and the Gaza Strip. Afterwards, then I'll talk mostly about our budget and leave plenty of time for question and answers. Today, David Dix gave a really remarkable talk at our Bowman breakfast between the university and the town leadership. And he asked this interesting question, which is, when does a gownie, meaning the gown, when does a gownie become a townie? Meaning, once you've gone to Kent State, maybe you've lived here a long time, you're both a Kent State person and a Kent person. And it just really reminded me that we're in all of this together. We're a community. And as a community, it doesn't mean that we agree on interpretations of events large and small, but it does mean that whatever your background, your place of origin, your religion, we really are a community that lives and works together. So I will say a few words more about what's happening in Israel and in the Gaza Strip. I want to repeat the thrust of my message, which is we are an institution that's committed to kindness and respect in all we do, and we're also committed to the freedom of expression. I don't have great words of wisdom at this point. I cannot personally get two images out of my mind at the moment. Added another third one just from yesterday. The first image is of the anguish on a young Israeli woman's face when she was taken captive with her two infant children. It's gut-wrenching to see that, amongst many gut-wrenching moments in that terrorist attack. And then I also have in my mind an image of a very young child, maybe an infant even, being pulled out of rubble in the Gaza Strip. Added to, then I read the really horrible news. Two articles struck me today in the Wall Street Journal. One was about Israeli parents whose 21-year-old has been taken hostage, followed by an article about the murder of a 6-year-old Palestinian American child by a landlord in Illinois that was shouting anti-Muslim statements as he murdered that child. I don't have great words of wisdom, but I can say that at moments such as these, I tend to turn to poetry, and I thought I would just read a poem by my favorite poet, Gary Snyder, and the poem is entitled For All. This is not a poem about grief. It's not a poem about strife. It's a poem that in the first half really honors or celebrates just simple pleasures, and it's a reminder that there are people now that do not have access to simple pleasures of life. And then the second half of the poem is a call for us all to recognize our shared humanity. So this is the poem For All by Gary Snyder. Ah, to be alive on mid-September morn, fording a stream, barefoot, pants rolled up, holding boots, pack on, sunshine, ice in the shallows, northern Rockies, rustle and shimmer of icy creek waters, stones turn underfoot, small and hard as toes, cold nose dripping, singing inside, creek music, heart music, smell of sun on gravel. I pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the soil of Turtle Island and to the beings who thereon dwell, one ecosystem, in diversity, under the sun, with joyful interpenetration for all. And if you'll just join me in a moment of silence for the victims, not only of the current very violent situation, but of these massive earthquakes, and then we'll turn our attention to the budget. So please just join me for a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. And thank you to the nearly 400 people that are attending at this moment. Much appreciated. All right, I'm going to say several words about our budget. Later today, we'll release my annual budget message to the university community. I encourage you to read it. For better or for ill, once you read it, you'll have the same understanding of the budget as I do. And I want to begin today's talking with Todd by stressing that we are doing fine financially. And I'm going to talk about our budget and I'm going to talk about challenges, but I mean it when I say that we're not in distress, that by many measures we are doing fine. However, and this is a big however, several structural factors are aligned against us. Several structural factors are aligned such as to make budgeting a challenge at Kent State, and not only at Kent State, but at public universities throughout Ohio. And of course, we've seen the stories from other states as well. But I first want to begin with just a reminder of some of the great things that have happened here in the last 2 years. You know, we're now a Research One, very high research institution, one of only 146 such universities in the United States. Huge honor. Kudos to Vice President Doug Delahanty and his team at RAS. Kudos to all of our faculty that are engaged in that research. We won the 2022 Senator Paul Simon Award for the best international programs in the United States. Kudos to all of you that had a role in that, particularly Global Ed. Our student pilots won the Women's Air Race Classic race 2 years in a row. That is an amazing race across America that features commercial pilots, it features amateur pilots, it features a dozen or so universities, and for 2 years in a row, our student pilots have won not only the collegiate competition, but the overall competition. That's pretty amazing. And speaking of that area, the addition to our College of Aeronautics and Engineering building is now open, and we will formally dedicate that space this week. All 3 labor unions that represent our employees have signed contracts, and our non-represented employees received a 3% raise for the 2nd year in a row. And on my list of things to shout about is that Crawford Hall, the project is on schedule, and we should be teaching courses out of there on time and a year from August. So we're doing well as an institution, and in financial terms, we are far from broke. We're not even treading water. And the stable financial condition is the result of our addressing several challenges, particularly since 2017. And as you know, we've had a series of voluntary separation plans, and employee participation in those plans reduced our employee headcount by 505 between 2017 and 2020. We are now, we have 500 fewer employees than we did in 2017. That's a 13% decline in the number of KSU employees. And this reduction has been followed by a real commitment to position control. So I just want to say this, without these and other measures, we would be in a world of hurt right now. So think about what's happening at the University of West Virginia. Think about universities that are eliminating programs and firing professors. We have avoided that because of the great work of Mark Politico and his team, the great work of our deans, of our provosts, really great cooperation from our faculty senate leadership and our faculty union and staff union leaders as well. So we're doing well. That's a really important message. But we do have concerns, and I'll list a few of those. One, I always aim to end a fiscal year, which ends on June 30th every year. We always aim for a 1% fund balance at the close of each fiscal year, which on a roughly $650 million Dollar budget means savings of somewhere around $6.5 million. And as you remember me saying in the past, we want to have a cushion of some annual savings to help with unexpected expenses, but we don't want to end the year with much more than that 1%, because that means we're not making strategic investments. But this year we finished with only a 0.2% budget balance, or 1.4 million, and that's cutting it way too close for my comfort. So that's one concern. Second concern is the current 2-year state budget, we're in year 1, allocates only a 1% increase in our state subsidy of instruction, our state appropriation. Allocates only a 1% increase in year 1 of the 2-year budget and 1.2% in year 2. Well, I'm not a mathematician, I'm not an economist. You don't have to be a mathematician nor an economist to understand that 1% increase in your state appropriation in no way keeps up with inflationary cost increases of the things that we purchase and consume. So I'm going to give you 2 examples. One example is the cost of our IT software and hardware purchases, which last year increased 11.6%. So in 1 year, we had 11.6% increase in the cost of our hardware and software purchases, which was 1.4 million that we spent on those than we did the year before. And then how about this? Our casualty insurance cost has increased 322% over the past 6 years. Let me just say that again. Our casualty insurance cost has increased 322% over the past 6 years, from $900,000 a year to $3.6 million a year. As a reminder, the tuition cohort model that the state mandated roughly 5 years ago means that new tuition revenues, new tuition increases occur only for entering in-state freshmen, and then the amount that they pay in tuition is frozen for 4 years, and what they pay for room and board is frozen for 4 years as well. Now look, I'm a fan of that, right? We want to make Kent State as accessible as possible financially for the broadest swath of people that we serve. And I embrace the tuition cohort model, but what it means is that when we raise tuition, we're only ever raising it on a fairly small group, whereas 10 years ago, if we had a 3% tuition increase, it would have been on 100% of the students. And then competition for enrollment is fierce in Ohio. We have so many public universities, we have so many private universities and colleges. One enrollment vice president in Colorado told me that, quote, Ohio is an enrollment bloodbath, end quote. The competition is fierce. And so when I think of this Ohio squeeze, I'm really talking about 3 things. A very tough state budget for us for the next 2 years. That's the first part of the squeeze. Inflationary costs that are no way made up by the increase in the state appropriation, that's number 2. And then this fierce competition for enrollment. Our look into the future suggests a $10 million budget deficit by fiscal year 27. So we are in fiscal year 24. And as we do our budget analysis, we think we'll be somewhere around a $10 million deficit in fiscal year 27. But this amount would be $30 million if we hadn't have dialed back spending for this fiscal year by $18.4 million. So let me just say that one more time. Our projections are we're going to have about a $10 million a year budget deficit by fiscal year 27. But had we not reduced projected expenditures by 18 million this year, we'd have a $30 million deficit in FY27. So to dial back expenditures by 18.4 million, the president's office and all vice presidencies except enrollment management and academic affairs saw budget cuts, spending reductions of 3.1%. Academic affairs cut projected expenditures by 2.7%, and we held enrollment management harmless from those expenditure reductions because we know that increasingly enrollment, tuition, and fees drives our revenue. Okay, so in conclusion, then I'm going to walk you through two very simple pie charts, and then I'm going to open things up for conversation. In conclusion, what's next is a push to generate more efficiencies without harming service. That's our next frontier. We have at Kent State a very decentralized IT unit, and we have at Kent State a very decentralized university communications and marketing unit. And these are not as efficient as centralized units at similar universities of our size because of redundancies in offices and services. And so we need to centralize IT and we need to centralize UCM, but we have to do it in a way that ensures good service. So that we have opportunities to become more efficient in both of those areas, and we'll look for other areas as well. We're not talking about reducing employee numbers, but we are talking about doing more coordinated work in those units to reduce future expense growth. Okay, I want to finish by walking everyone through two slides, and then I'll go to question and answer. So if we could see slide 1, and if somebody could let me know when that slide is up. Okay, I see the sign that it's up. So this is just our revenue. So this is fiscal year 2024 budgeted unrestricted revenues, and it's pretty simple. And I did the math on a piece of paper that I have now lost, of course, but you don't have to be great at economics and math to understand. Here it is, that for our revenue, 80% comes from two sources. We're going to have about a $687 million budget for Kent State University writ large this year. About 80% of that comes from the state in terms of the state appropriation and from tuition and fees, which you can see very clearly on your pie chart. If you add in auxiliary revenues, think room and board charges, think bookstore and the like, that's 96% of our revenue. So it's not really rocket science to figure out where your revenue comes from. Tuition and fees, state appropriation, auxiliary enterprises, that's 96% of what we do. Okay, if we'll put up the next slide, which is fiscal year 2024 budgeted unrestricted expenditures. So where do we spend the money? Well, 76% of our expenditures fall in three categories. Salary and wages, you can see that there, 46.2%. Benefits, so health insurance, retirement benefits and the like, 17.2%. And student aid, think scholarships, is 13%. So those three together make up 3/4 of what we spend at Kent State University. The other noticeable number there is transfers, and transfers, it really just means taking large expenses where we got the money in one place and then spending it as we need. So for example, we have bond monies, and then we transfer those funds into paying our annual debt payments, or funds set aside for auxiliary operations, capital projects and the like. That's transfers. So that's in a nutshell. That's what our budget is at Kent State University. It's a lot more complicated, but in the end, this simplicity captures a real reality at our university. So I am going to stop there and remove my notes that are taped to my monitor, and I'm going to now wait for questions, and I assume I need to click on the Q&A. Wow, look at all these questions. Holy moly, this is great. And thanks to the 463 people that are attending. Well, let me I've got several questions here. Where do I want to start? And folks, please send in your questions. It can be about budget. It can be about anything you want. That's what we want to do in talking with Todd. what are your thoughts and memories during homecoming week each fall? I mean, I love homecoming, and one of the reasons I love homecoming is because I meet such interesting people who had great experiences at Kent State. I know when I go to my little alma mater, which was a liberal arts college in Kansas, it's such a thrill for me, and I know that's a thrill for people here as well. So I love homecoming. It's really one of the great things. I've just gotten a note, click published. Okay, boom. All right. Have you gotten your flu and COVID booster shots yet? Yes, I did, and I encourage everyone else to do so. Do you anticipate offering staff and/or faculty buyouts again in the spring 2024? I don't think so. I don't think we'll need to do that. You know, we're really walking a thin line between staying fiscally healthy and having enough employees to get done the work that we need to do. And I really don't want to tip that line further. So I don't have any, we're not talking about doing that in the next year. Did you happen to see Elvis in the Rainbow Run? Actually did see Elvis Presley at the Rainbow Run. What a great event for our LGBTQ plus center and its great leaders. And wow, it was just such a great event. I was really pleased to see Elvis out there running. Oh, wow. I don't know how to answer this question, but it's a darn good one. It's the one that keeps me up at night. What do you think the future of universities in Ohio will be with further enrollment challenges? Do you think institutions will have to close? Okay, I do think we'll see private institutions close. We're seeing that nationwide. I went to a school in Winfield, Kansas that enrolled 475 students, and your margins there are so small that you're always kind of in a precarious position. I don't think public universities will close just because I can't imagine the politics of that, but we're all just going to have to live in this new financial reality where the state appropriations simply doesn't keep up with our increasing costs. I mean, that's just a given already. Okay, I saw David Dix was at the Bowman breakfast this morning. Do you have much of a relationship with him? Well, I talk to David periodically. He gave such a great talk today, and he is such a storehouse of knowledge, both intellectual knowledge, but also just lived knowledge from his many, many years as the editor of the local newspaper and a longtime Kent resident. So I really enjoy my interactions with David Dix. Have you considered suspending travel or entertainment such as food for meetings? Typically, in the way we address our budget is that it's the units that decide how they're going to do that. So no, I have not considered telling all units across the campus how to meet their expense reductions. That's really up for them to do. So I haven't considered suspending travel or entertainment such as food for meetings. Maybe in some places that's appropriate, but I haven't thought about doing that university-wide. Okay, I'm gonna read this question and then I'm gonna say I've really dropped the ball on this. So can you please talk about the staff council and your expectations? I really need to get together with Vice President Amwaba Gooden because she's done great work with our staff council. I haven't met with them yet. That's my fault. That's on me. I really appreciate the staff and I appreciate our staff council. I look forward to meeting with you, and I want to apologize for not having met with you yet. And whoever asked that question, thank you for asking that question and getting that back on my menu of things, because that's really important to me. Well, I don't know if I don't know that I agree with the statement, but I'll read it and answer the question. Okay, the statement: you have tremendous energy and quick thinking. Question: how do you maintain your physical and mental health? Well, like I said, I don't know that I agree with that assertion, but thank you. It feels like a compliment, and I appreciate that. Well, I mean, I do work out regularly. I run on I'm fortunate to live 2 blocks from the hike and bike trail here in Kent, so If you want to find me, you'll find me at 7 a.m. running 3.5 miles on the trail 4 times a week. How do I maintain my mental health? Look, this past 6 months has been a real struggle for all of us. It's been a real struggle for me. All of the work I was doing and conversations in Columbus really took a toll on me. And I'm not saying that to create a pity party for Todd Dykin. I'm saying that as an acknowledgement that all of us in higher education, we know that we're doing great work. We know that we are the engine of social mobility, the engine for generating new knowledge. We know the great good that we do for society and for the state of Ohio. But honestly, I spent the last 6 months going to Columbus and being told that we are the source of all of our states and nations' ills in a cultural war kind of sense. So I'll just be honest with you, I haven't taken great care of my mental health. And I appreciate all the pressures that all of us are working under. And I certainly have an opportunity to do that better going forward. Okay, how can we encourage state legislature to fully support higher education, public education generally, and what are you doing as president of Kent State in this space? Look, I think the biggest challenge that I face right now is that the assertions that are made to me and to all higher education leaders, they are assertions that are not based on fact. And the challenge I have is that when I say, well, I don't know, I don't understand that assertion because at Kent State, X, Y, and Z. But the difficulty I feel like right now is that it's not a data-driven debate. And that's what we deal with, right? All of us in higher education deal with data and with arguments that are driven by facts. And this is really difficult right now. So I think what we can do is to continue to tell the world what we're doing, try to be transparent with our budgeting, try to be transparent with our spending, because there's a lot of belief amongst elected officials that we are wasteful of the state's money. So that's an opportunity to us to continue to explain that we're not wasting the state's money. Far from it. What are the plans to write the salaries for entry and mid-level positions with the current climate with regards to ability to attract and retain employees? Well, I don't know that we have a centralized plan for dealing with that right now. So I don't know that one answer can fit all sizes here. But what I will say is that we want to be the employer of choice, and we will make decisions on spending that are driven by that goal. And look, we're probably never going to get to the point where everyone wants us to get to. But I will say that, for example, we've had, for our underrepresented employees, we've had raises of 3% and 3%. And I believe that is either first or tied for first in raises at public universities in Ohio over the last 2 years. Well, this is a great question. Wow, what a good question. How small is too small for the viability of a regional campus? I think the answer to that, and we have 458 people attending, and I'm going to assume that several of you are on the regional campuses. I think I'll kind of turn that question around. So just as a reminder, how small is too small for a regional campus to remain viable? If we are able to cooperate in terms of our hiring, in terms of shared services, if we're able to increase that kind of cooperation between campuses, then there's no need to reduce our footprint in Ohio. And we are not going to do that, and I don't want to do that. But to keep all of those regional campuses open, we have to have a better coordination of schedules. We have to have a better coordination of teaching. We have to have more shared services. We have now a centralized enrollment management unit for the regional campuses, which is paying really big dividends. So if we do nothing, we're in trouble, but we're not doing nothing. In fact, Vice President Peggy Shattuck and and Provost Melody Tankersley and a group of regional campus faculty have been meeting now for several months. A lot of great ideas, a lot of good work is happening in that realm. I know that Provost Tankersley and Associate Provost Kevin Martin have been out to our regional campuses to good effect. So we're going to make changes, and the changes are just going to make us that much more effective and efficient and stronger in our campuses, because if you're a mission of access and student degree completion, regionals are key to that. That's a key component. All right, let's see here. I've got several here, so I just want to read through. What is the book you have highlighted behind you? So, full disclosure, I have not yet read this book, but it is up here for a reason. So this is the autobiography of jazz composer, jazz musician, Randy Weston. And I don't know Randy Weston, and I have not read this book yet. I look forward to reading it. But the organizer of the book and the introduction to the book, I do know, and that's Willard Jenkins. So that book is up there to honor Willard Jenkins, Kent State University graduate from Cleveland. Why do I say that? Because a few months ago, Willard Jenkins essentially received the Nobel Prize of Culture, which is, he was named an NEA Jazz Master, National Endowment for the Arts Jazz Master, which is the highest honor you can get in jazz music. And Willard is he's the associate director, I think that's his title, of the Washington, D.C. Jazz Fest. He's a journalist who has written in Downbeat, every jazz magazine out there on jazz. He's a journalist of jazz. And he tells me wonderful stories about writing about jazz when he was a student at Kent State and driving up to Cleveland to get the latest jazz albums back in the day. So I have that book there to honor Willard and to recognize a great Golden Flashes accomplishment in the world of the National Endowment for the Arts. What are your thoughts about the establishment of a study abroad program in Paris? That's still underway. You know, we have this great partnership with the Paris American Academy. We're very happy to be taking that over. There was an explosion there. Marcello Fantoni was over there looking for a new building as we speak, and we'll be back up and running within several months, and that's a real credit to the people that are doing that. Is it really true that I've gone through 59 minutes? Is that possible? I can't even believe that. So if somebody can give me a sign that really it's 59, it can't be 59 minutes. So I'm just going to ignore that. All right. What would you, this thing got cut off, so I can't read it. Oh, here it is. What would you say to staff that's feeling burned out and overworked, feeling that we have to continue to work harder and to do more with less, feeling cemented, further cementing this thought is hearing we have 500 less employees than 2016. Yeah, 2017. Well, yeah, for sure we have, first of all, look, we have 500 fewer employees, but put it in context, we had 42,000 students at Kent State system-wide in 2012. And we got down to 34 or so. So, you know, we have a lot fewer students than we had when we reached those high watermark in employee numbers. Now, having said that, yeah, I get the overwork part because I feel that way myself. And I think partly for me, as I explained earlier, it's because our whole reason for existence is being called into question. And I think the disconnect for me psychologically is I know that we do good work and I know that we make people's lives better. I know that we are a great institution of access and degree completion, and yet we get criticized for a lot of things. I don't have a great answer to that. I do want to say a special shout out to all of you who do that great work, and it's truly appreciated. With future budgets, what does the future of tuition guarantee for students look like? Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by tuition guarantee. If you mean by the tuition guarantee, the model where freshmen come in, we can increase the tuition on incoming freshmen in state, and then we can't increase it for 4 years. I don't see that changing. I think there's no political will. Yeah, there's no political will in Columbus to change that, and I don't want to change it. I mean, I just think we're committed to degree completion for the broadest number of students we can. We know that many of our students that don't earn a degree, they don't earn the degree because they can't afford to continue going to college. It's not because they're doing badly. It's not because they flunked out. It's not because they're on academic probation. So I don't see the tuition guarantee model disappearing. It does add a level of complexity to budgeting. I will grant you that. Let me just say this again. Before tuition guarantee, if we said we were going to raise tuition by 3%, that was 3% on 36,000 students, 3% on 42,000 students. Now, when we say we're going to increase tuition on incoming in-state students, it's on 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 students, and that just generates a far smaller amount of revenue to help us make up for the lack of state funding keeping up with inflationary costs. Not a question, but I wanted to say that I love the painting on your wall, Gray and Gold by John Rogers Clark. Wow, yeah. Look, I love that painting too. The original hangs in the Cleveland Museum of Art. I like it. It's actually a painting from Indiana in the 1940s, but I like it because that's where I grew up. I grew up in Kansas. I spent years of my life riding motorcycles and bicycles through that environment. So I'm glad somebody noticed that. It's one of the great paintings of this world. What advice would you have for someone that is at the start of their career in higher education and looking to grow? I guess I ought to start thinking about this because I'm old enough now that you would think I would have some storehouse of experience and knowledge to opine on this. I mean, I think for me personally, there's no better business to be in the world. I mean, how could you not enjoy helping people succeed? I love the fact, I always used to joke that each year our incoming students get younger, but I don't get older. And it's because I'm always around these very youthful, interested and interesting people, including our new employees and our new faculty. So I guess the first piece of advice I would have is to get into higher education and stay in higher education. It's wonderful. I mean, every job has its frustration. But man, we make a difference in the lives of people. And come on, that's a great motivation and great reward in and of itself. Looking to grow, yeah, I'm probably bad about that because I never really thought of it in those terms. But I will say this: do your job. Do it to the best of your ability. People will notice, and you'll be given those opportunities to grow. And you'll look for those opportunities on your own as well. That's a pretty bad answer, it feels like, but that's what pops into my head right now. Well, this is interesting, and I'll explain why interesting here in a minute while I take a sip of coffee from my new gold Kent State mug. And thank you to my friends that gave me that. Okay, chatbot and artificial intelligence in the daily lives of the university. And are we working on a statement of policy on its use? I need to get a good answer for that, the latter part of that question. I was at a meeting of MAC presidents yesterday, Mid-American Conference presidents. And one Mid-American Conference president said that, he basically uses artificial intelligence chatbot to write most of his remarks. And actually, I've seen some of that done. That's pretty darn good. I am not there yet at all. I just couldn't do that, but I suspect it's coming. Our faculty athletics representative, Teresa Walton-Frazette, just as a kind of a experiment, asked chatbot to compose an explanation of what the faculty athletics representative does. And she sent it to me and to athletics director Randall Richmond. It was pretty damn good, I have to say. I heard a really great presentation by a vice president from the University of Maryland about what they're doing with artificial intelligence and chatbot. And, you know, I think we'll also turn to our teaching and learning center for this. You know, there are ways to ensure that students are able to, in class, in person, explain what they have written in an assignment that they've turned in. And I'm no expert on that, but I am going to a multi-day seminar on this next June, and hopefully I'll have a better knowledge and can answer this question better then. What are you looking forward to seeing at the grand opening of the College of Aeronautics and Engineering? Well, A, a lot of happy people. B, representatives of the Temkin family and the Temkin Foundation, because their very generous contribution was key to making this addition a reality. I think what I look forward most is to celebrate our successes in aeronautics and engineering. I mean, this is a program. Look, I love all my programs equally. I love all of our programs equally. Right now, I have a special affection for aeronautics and engineering because of the amount of growth in programming and enrollment that we have seen in the last 7 or so years. Kudos to Dean Blowbaum and her team for that. I mentioned that our student pilots of 2 years in a row won the Women's Air Race Classic, which is just astonishing to me that we have done that. So what am I looking forward to? Seeing the people celebrating their successes and thanking our generous donors. That's what I look forward to. Okay. America recently held, excuse me, Banned Book Week. And focusing on bans to many classic pieces of literature, would you ever see book bans coming to Kent State? Well, the easiest answer to me would be to say no, and I certainly don't see that coming to Kent State. But I do want to say this as a historian. About 3 years ago, I read this history of Weimar Germany, and it was really a conversation of how quickly democracy died in Weimar Germany. And I'll bet you there were university presidents and faculty and employees at German universities that in 1926 said, you know, we're not going to ban books, and none of that's ever going to happen in our democracy. And then boom, 33 and beyond, it happened. So I'm saying that not to be alarmist. I'm saying that to say that, you know, democracy can be a fragile thing, and we don't want to take it for granted. So no, we're not going to be banning books at Kent State, but I do think we'll start to see, and already do see, more complaints about books. I dealt with an issue in our region, one of our regional campus deans and others dealt with a complaint about a book that was assigned in a course, I don't know, right before COVID. So that's out there. Hold on, I'm just reading this question. I am a current employee of the university who is also a student, hoping to market myself for future promotions within my department. Oh, okay, got it. Do you foresee changes in the curriculum to accommodate those who have real-life experience in the field? Yeah, I think this would be a great follow-up question. We'll talk with our provost's office. But let me just say this, I can't answer that specifically, but what I can say is that we really are committed to being this institution of access and degree completion. And if addressing that kind of situation, that strikes me as absolutely within what we ought to be doing as an institution. So I appreciate that question. And I think I've answered this other question here about the future of universities in Ohio, and do I think that some institutions will have to close? Yeah, I'm pretty sure, because I was jumping around on the list of questions, and I apologize for that. But these are our last questions. by my clock, I still have a few minutes. So if anybody wants to send in a question, I'll do my darndest to address it. Again, we're going to send out today my annual budget message. Okay, full disclosure. It's like 6 or 7 pages, single spaced in length. So it's pretty lengthy. Actually, it's 9 pages of single space. And I get it, that's a lot to read. We have tried to facilitate a shorter read of it by having executive summaries in each section. So I guess I would just ask you to do this. At least read the executive summary sections of the budget report. It's really important to me that everyone at Kent State understands our budget, how we do things. And so I think you'll feel like you're more informed if you read this budget message, and it's really something that I'm committed to doing each year. Okay, how do you keep focused on your deeper purpose for your work amid all the stress and legislative issues? Yeah, oh yeah, this is interesting. Look, it gets frustrating because you feel like you have a pretty good handle on how things should go, but but people aren't accepting of your explanations, and that gets dispiriting. But as I've said several times in these past 45 minutes, I mean, we have a great job because we're out there changing people's lives. And I can't think of any bigger purpose in life and honor in life to be playing a principal role in that development. So I think that's how I keep focused on my deeper purpose. And I think with that, I'm getting some messages saying that we're out of time. So let me say that for the 427 of you that have attended and are watching, thank you for what you do. Thank you for tuning in to Talking with Todd. Appreciate it. We'll be back for future episodes in the coming months, and I'll do my best. Keep your questions coming. And in the meantime, thanks everyone. Go Flashes. Enjoy homecoming. It's the best time of the year. Take care. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.